Manchester United destroyed, ripped apart by a superior, vastly superior Manchester City. An embarrassing afternoon. One that renders you a little bit cold, sobering in many ways. But of course, a different feeling at Manchester United right now compared to maybe the start of the season because of the investments in Anthony, the investments in Casemiro, the fact that we've been shown that the team can play well at times, but of course, nowhere near the standard that Erik ten Hag wants to get this team to. That run of 4 games shouldn't be dismissed, shouldn't be scoffed at. Rivals will do that, of course. Rivals will say, we're back in the mud, where we belong. This is our standard. We're never going to get any better. And I'll delve into that in a few moments. But Manchester United fans should still be angry, but angry in a different way. Not asking for managers to be sacked, not going over the top with hyperbolic statements around seasons over, write the campaign off, because that isn't the case. But there does need to be some frustration at the players and the manager to a degree to that. I want to delve into that. Firstly, the players. A lack of effort from so many of them. Sitting too deep at times, not going with runners. We saw that a lot from Eriksen today. McTominay was back to his normal standard, not performing, not where you want to see him. The level where you want to see him. There's the lack of courage from our attacking players today. Hot potato is the way I looked at it. Bruno, Rashford, Anthony in that first half, especially Jadon Sancho, they got the ball. And instead of playing the sensible ball, instead of taking hold of the game, taking responsibility, it was a case of let me just get rid of this ball as soon as possible to pass responsibility onto somebody else. Hot potato. And when Man United did that, we played into Manchester City's hands. There were 2 or 3 opportunities in this game to be able to break on the counter. The openings were there, but we never played the ball because playing the right pass put responsibility at the feet of Rashford, Bruno, Eriksen, Jadon Sancho. And instead, they went for the easy option and got caught out. It became very, very predictable in the way in which we played. And when you're predictable and you're easy to win the ball back from, as we were today, Man City will punish you. Man City will kill you. Because from an attacking point of view, no matter who they got at the back, who's in central midfield, from an attacking element, we may be looking at one of the best attacks, maybe the best attacking unit, including midfield and forwards, the Premier League has ever seen. And of course, that includes Haaland with 17 goals in 11 games in all competitions, 14 already in the Premier League, an absolute phenom. But you've also got to look at Ten Hag today. You've also got to look at Ten Hag and his substitutions, leaving it so late to bring Casemiro into the game. I believe that should have been a 25-minute, 30-minute substitution. Change something, make a statement, make Man City rethink. Send another message into this Man United dressing room. And that's the key factor here. I'm not angry at Ten Hag in the same way I was with Oli on his way out, Jose on his way out, LVG on his way out. But this is about the manager making the right decisions and sending the adequate message into the dressing room. Because Man United are nowhere near back for one big reason. We are in a 10-year slump. 10 years of terrible projects, regression, hemorrhaging of money, the eradication, the erosion of standards at the football club. And all of this needs to be reintroduced. Ten Hag can't do that in 2 or 3 months. We may win our next 5 games. We could win our next 6 games, the next 7 games, the next 8 games, but we're not back. It's going to take years to eradicate poor behaviors, a lack of courage, and to instill a philosophy of football and a standard of behaviors into a dressing room that the ownership and the people that run the club prior allowed to deteriorate so badly. It takes a long time. Days like today should frustrate you. You should call them out. You should criticize teams that were picked, the manager's decisions, the players. But the hope in which is that that's taken on board and improvements are made from that point. How those improvements are made, Glazers have got to continue to allow Erik ten Hag to have complete control. Ronaldo wasn't brought onto the pitch today. What's going to happen in the next game? What message does that send? How does that impact the dressing room? They've also got to keep investing. There's talk that the club isn't going to spend anywhere near as much money as it did in the previous summer. That is suicide. Because as good as those run of 4 games were, anybody that believes we were just going to bring in a new manager and the squad we had was going to be capable of achieving brilliant things is wrong. Man United don't have a terrible squad, but we don't have a title-winning squad. And this is where people become hyperbolic. Well, you said, Terry, that this squad wasn't bad. It isn't bad. It's a good squad. this team could make top 4. Could. I don't think it will, but could. Could it challenge for a Premier League title? Not in your Nelly. So investment in the squad is also going to be needed. Multiple summers of clearing out deadwood and bringing in the right players for the philosophy the club is trying to build. And thirdly, that kind of swims around all of this is not just the power given to the manager in the short term and investment into his squad, but it's the club building a new culture and philosophy based on this style of football that goes beyond Ten Hag, that lives beyond his time at the football club, ensuring that no matter how despondent Ronaldo becomes, Ten Hag remains in control. Not because Ten Hag is Ten Hag, but because he's the Man United manager. That no matter how annoyed a player that thinks he's a superstar is, the club puts the interests of itself above him, because the club philosophy and approach is more important than any individual player and any manager. That is the pressure that we need to put upon the football club. Forget rivals for a minute. They're just going to say, this isn't on the Glazers. Today is nothing to do with how you're run as a football club. It is. Today is everything to do with how we're run as a football club, because those players let Ten Hag down. He made some poor decisions within the game that he could have done differently with hindsight, but I believe he'll learn from that and make the right choices later on down the line. All managers are allowed to make mistakes. That doesn't mean you write them off. It equally doesn't mean you stop the criticism at the mistake and go, that's the only problem today. Man United players bottled it. Why do we bottle it? Why do we show no passion? We've got away with it for so many years. The players have got away with this systematically. And what's going to happen, even if they respect Ten Hag, even if they work hard, there are moments where they're going to revert to type. There are moments where they're going to hide in the shadows and hope that it's the manager and his system and his tactics that take full blame. That's going to happen, whether they're trying to do it or not. You are never going to eradicate 10 years of mediocrity, poor standards inside 3 or 4 months. So my frustration today is on the performance and the individual game. But my anger, my real burning anger, is with how we're run as a football club. Because the reason, after spending the same amount of money as City in a decade, that we're here and they're up there is because of how they're run. Pep Guardiola has taken them to a new level. But to think that Pep Guardiola is the reason City are where they are is wrong. He is a huge component in the growth, the consistency, the style of football. But if Man City had been run poorly since they were taken over by the Sheikh, they wouldn't have been in the position to attract Pep Guardiola. He wouldn't have walked into a club run well with an already brilliant squad that was already winning titles and elevate them to the next level. It wouldn't have existed. The infrastructure, the foundation wouldn't have been there. And that is what we're building right now. And people will say, another rebuild, more excuses for Man United. We need a rebuild. There's no foundation. There's no core. There's no heart. There's no soul. We will win games this year. We could even win a trophy this year. We could even qualify for the Champions League this year. But it doesn't mean we're back. It's going to take years to build what we need. It's going to take consistency and investment from the Glazers and them allowing the football people to make the football decisions at the club. And Man United fans cannot lose sight of that. Because if we do, and we forget about the Glazers after a handful of wins, we're fucked. If we do, and after a handful of losses, we turn on the management, a few insubordinate players start saying the coaching standards aren't high enough, and we lap it up, and we turn around and start going, I think the manager's got to move on. This is actually a really good squad that could do bits if we had a better manager. And we go back to repeating ourselves and making the same mistakes as we've made over the past decade again and again and again and again. We're in big trouble. Man City on the day deserve to beat us because they've got a better quality squad that's been built over a decade. They beat us today because they've actually got a better manager than us. Don't know if anybody's aware of that. On the day, they got their tactics better. Their players fought harder, run harder, worked harder, and had the bottle and the courage to take the game by the scruff of the neck and say, we will beat you today. But all of those things have been built up over a period of time. This Man City team, if they'd have employed Pep day one of their takeover, 3 or 4 months in, they wouldn't be doing then what they're doing now. Even with Pep, it would have taken them time. And that's when Man United fans have got to apply pressure on the way we run as a club, but have patience in developing ourselves to get there. Those two things are absolutely key. Do I believe Man United fans are going to do that? I'm being honest with you. No, I don't think they will. Right now, there'll be 100% patience with Ten Hag because that's the fashionable thing to do. The right thing to do as well, by the way, but it's fashionable. People will lose interest in Glazers out. People will lose interest in focusing on the real true problems. How do I know this? Because it's happened every single time a manager's been sacked. The Glazers with the focus at the end of Moyes' era went away. End of LVG's era went away. Jose, Oli, Ragnick. It disappears over time. And that's my biggest fear and worry. Today was embarrassing. Today was humbling. Today was poor from a footballing point of view. But to get to a point where we can genuinely play football against Man City and win on a continuous basis is going to take years of investment, growth, and a cultural reboot of the football club. And I know these buzzwords annoyed people, but all the best run clubs in the country have gone through this pain. I heard someone tweet today that we didn't lose today because of the Glazers. It's all on the players and Ten Hag. And there's an element of that is true in its basic sense. But let me reverse this in a different way with a different club. Are you telling me it's just on the players and a manager as to why Brighton are suddenly in the Premier League playing good football? Or is that because of years of brilliant investment, brilliant running of the football club, excellent cultural structures behind the scenes? Is that why Brighton are where they are? Or is it purely that they got lucky and bought two or three of a squad of the right players by luck with no planning and have managed to fluke a couple of good managers on the bounce? Or is it because they're really well run that they are where they are? And that's the conundrum here for Man United fans. I know we want to be like every other club where you're mainly focusing on what you're doing on the pitch only, but we don't have that luxury yet. We do not have the luxury of not focusing on the one true consistent problem at this football club for the past, it's been 17 years, but decades since Fergie stopped running it, since David Gill stopped running it. But back to today, these players need to take a long, hard look at themselves. The manager needs to get them in the training ground ASAP. It's going to be hard to make them run those miles because there's now games twice a week. So we can't make them go on a 17K run again. But he's got to blast them for today because their lack of energy, their lack of courage let them down. He's got to take a look at himself and take stock and feedback from his coaching staff, his peers, people around him on what he could have done differently, earlier substitutions, maybe a different kind of style. Maybe he did stick too long with McTominay. Maybe Malacia wasn't quite ready for a game of this magnitude just yet. And he's let a little bit too much good form get in his way of thinking. He's got to improve, no doubt. But Man United fans have got to remember what the one true problem is. And until we allow a manager to build a club philosophy for us, improve our culture, go through these hard miles, go through these speed bumps without turning against them, we're never, ever, ever going to think about competing with a team like Man City again. Not on a one-off day, because we've beaten them many times since we've been bad. We've beaten everybody since we've been bad in England. But what does it really amounted to in the end? Very little. Like, I do want your thoughts and I want your feelings, and that's a painful day today. It's a humbling day today. City deserved it, no doubt about it. But what do Man United need to learn from this? What should they be doing internally to ensure things improve? I want your thoughts and I want your feelings, people. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.